Sana Durani. After doing my inter-commerce, I did my bachelor's from IBA with marketing and MIS majors, and then pursued MBA from the same institute. After doing my BBA, I joined Impact Activations in 2007, so it's been about 4 years. I didn't really change jobs, but there was a lot to learn here because brand activation is, a new industry and a new field altogether. So in terms of career growth, I started as management trainee, moved on to junior planner, then senior planner, and now I look after strategy. So that's about it for career growth. Well, brand activation, there's something I'd like to clarify here. Brand activation has become synonymous to BTL. When that really isn't the case. Brand activation is bigger because when you say activating a brand, it's about covering 360 degrees, all aspects of the communication. So what 30 years ago used to be just conventional advertising has now changed into something that we call brand activation, which means that you're activating your brand, engaging the consumer with that one single brand idea or brand position through all the different communication modes available. So whether it's BTL, ATL, digital, or many other forms of marketing which are available, brand activation, in my opinion, is bigger than just BTL. And it's about bringing a brand to life throughout all available platforms with one brand message and one brand position. Okay, so I can't really comment too much on the entire global history, but from what I do know, 30 years ago, like I said, advertising used to be extremely conventional, just putting ads on TV, putting them on print media, and then somehow when brands started to evolve, when brands started to grow, what you're left with now is a very intelligent consumer who is now not just a customer, but they're competent, intelligent individuals who are faced with a lot of options. So they have access to a lot of brands of the same product range at many different points, and basically it's tougher to convince an educated, intelligent consumer now to switch to your brand. So that's why conventional advertising and just putting an outdoor billboard or just putting a print ad in the newspaper is not going to help your cause. It needs to be more personal, it needs to be more experiential, and that's where I think BTL fits in, and that's how conventional advertising has evolved into brand activation, which is BTL, ATL, the whole shebang, the whole 360-degree plan that every brand now needs to work with in order to make that impression on its consumers. As for the pioneers of brand activation in Pakistan, well, internationally speaking, I think it started when brands like Marlboro and Red Bull started to sponsor relevant events. Like Marlboro would sponsor rallies and car racing events, Red Bull would sponsor extreme sports. So I think that's where it somehow started. In terms of Pakistan, I think Unilever Pakistan was one of the first companies that started brand activation in the real sense. Unilever Pakistan, Colgate, Palmolive. So it was mostly FMCGs that started this. And from there on, it's been an uphill ride, and now it's being explored by telcos, by FMCGs, by tobacco companies even. So yeah. Okay, so there's one thing we need to understand. That's when we talk about conventional advertising agencies, we're talking about ATL agencies like JWT, etc. Your advertising agencies. That's what I'm going to take as a reference point. So when it comes to their major role, I think advertising agency is more directly involved in shaping that exact big idea or the brand communication message for a particular campaign for each brand. And by the time it comes to a BTL agency's plate, it's all about bringing that one brand idea or that one big idea to life on ground. So BTL is more about the experiential side of that particular big idea. Just to give an example, Sunsilk's last campaign was about scoring a 10 with your hair, right? So when the campaign came to us, which was a global campaign, it's all about scoring 10 with Sunsilk conditioners. But when we had to bring it to life for activation, we came up with a separate title, which again was along the same lines as the big idea that the campaign itself had. So we called it Thus on Thus, but essentially the idea was still scoring 10 for your hair. When you look at a 360-degree plan, there are separate roles for every agency. So you'll see something that ATL has to do, something that outdoor has to do, digital, BTL, everything. So if I compare BTL to other agencies, BTL is about the experience side of that communication message that you're giving to your core TG. An advertisement that you see on TV, hear on the radio, read in the newspaper, that is more about communicating the brand's core message. Whereas when you talk about BTL, we're actually making the TG experience the proof of what I'm trying to say. So if, for instance, I'm promoting a hand wash, not only am I saying that hand wash is good for killing germs, etc., but I'm also going to stand there and wash your hands in front of you and make that claim and make that proof stronger for the consumer to walk away with. So that's, I think, what separates BTL from other agencies. That our key role in the entire 360-degree plan is to give that proof to the consumer, which eventually turns them into more loyal or more aware consumers and helps in then therefore changing the consumer perception about a brand. Okay, so how activation works internally. Rightly said, there are three distinct functions. There's strategy and planning, there's creative, there's account management, and of course you can't leave out the most important, which is execution, because at the end of the day, once you have the plan in hand, it's all about putting it on ground the way that you've planned it. So how it works is that normally we get briefs from agencies, and by brief I mean a document or a handover meeting where they explain to us their objectives and what they're looking forward to in the activation plan. And this doesn't always have to be very descriptive. So sometimes they leave it up to you that this is my brand, this is the target group, and come up with something. So how a BTL agency functions as far as our departments are concerned, there's strategy and planning, creative, account management, which is just one side of the picture. The other side is execution and the on-ground team, because of course you plan one thing, but then they're the ones who are putting it on ground. So how the process works is that you get a brief from the client, which sometimes not in so much detail, sometimes in a lot of detail, explains to us what the brand really wants from the activation. So once we have that in hand, we have a discussion session with the client to just clarify any points on the brief, whether it's clarifying what the TG is, what the exact objectives are. But the idea is to get all the variables figured out before we sit down and start to brainstorm. The next step then is to brainstorm, which is an internal session where strategy and planning sits down. In some cases, we might conduct focus groups and small research sessions or a recce to validate our thought process. But so then there's a brainstorm session, and through which you extract a couple of ideas, and then we start to detail those ideas and turn it into a bigger activation campaign. Once that's done, client servicing and planning goes and sells that plan to the agency, to the client, I'm sorry. Well, tries to sell it to the client, and if everything works out and if the plan is sold, then whatever changes, tweaking needs to be done, that's done. And then comes the entire painful part of actually doing everything and bringing it to life on ground. So then we hand it over to operations, who takes care of production, execution, and then there's quality assurance as well, which involves the planning and client servicing team to constantly go and check the activity on ground to see if we're actually delivering what was planned. And that's pretty much how it works. In some cases, we also monitor and check for KPIs, whether they're being achieved, and once an activation is completed, you go back and see whether you actually achieved the results that you had set out to achieve in the first place. So that's pretty much it. The first and the foremost thing is that BTL, or on ground or experiential marketing, allows you to go down to the exact consumer that you're looking for and speak to that very person, that very same person. See, the thing is, when you see a message on a billboard, that's information for you, but unless it's relevant to you, you don't remember it. So it's very easy to go and shout out a mass message to a whole group of people and hope that some of them are going to be relevant to your brand. But the effectiveness measure in activations, I believe, is much higher, because you choose who you go and speak to and what you say to them. And honestly, if it's relevant to the person that you're speaking to, they're going to remember it more. That's one thing, targeting. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, experiential marketing has a very strong power in leaving a lasting impression on your consumer. Why? Because you're giving them proof and reason to believe for whatever proposition that